Welcome to another episode of the Pound for Pound Boxing Report. I am your host, Michael. Along with me again is my co-host, Kent. And joining us live all the way from Taiwan, special guest Sean Nelson. How you guys doing?
Good. How you doing?
Hang in there, man. Hang in there. For those who are new to the Pound for Pound Boxing Report, the Pound for Pound Boxing Report is a show/blog/podcast that discusses all things boxing. Our motto is, when boxing is good, we will talk about it. When boxing is bad, we will talk about it. The bottom line is, if it concerns boxing, we will talk about it. There are two main places you can go to find information about the Pound for Pound Boxing Report. You can go to the blog page. The link to the blog is p4pboxingreport.wordpress.com. I'll repeat that, p4pboxingreport.wordpress.com, where you can find not only past episodes of the Pound for Pound Boxing Report podcast, but you can also find articles from yours truly, and soon in 2014, my co-host Kent. You can also go to the podcast page, and the link for that is p4pboxingreport.podomatic.com. And repeat that, p4pboxingreport.podomatic.com. And on the podcast page, you can find all previous episodes of the Pound for Pound Boxing Report podcast. On both of those pages as well, you can find links to where to find us, the Pound for Pound Boxing Report, all over the internet, all over social media, on Facebook, on YouTube, on Twitter. The Twitter handle is at P4P Boxing Report. On Google Plus, podcast page and blog page, of course. Tumblr, Pinterest, the RSS feed, in case you want to subscribe to the RSS feed and listen to us that way. You can also find a link where you can donate your account. The address for that is donateyouraccount.com/P4P Boxing Report. Let me repeat that, donateyouraccount.com/P4P Boxing Report. Be a friend, be a pal, be a buddy, donate your Twitter account, and what happens is that any tweet that comes from the Pound for Pound Boxing Report Twitter page, your Twitter account would automatically have the ability to retweet any tweet that comes from the Pound for Pound Boxing Report Twitter page. With all those homework matters out the way, let's get the show started tonight, fellas, and do a recap of what happened in boxing this past week. Headlined, of course, by the triple-header, Showtime triple-header that took place in Montreal. The showcase bout was, of course, Adonis Stevenson making his mandatory defense against Andrzej Fonfara. A lot of controversy swirling regarding Stevenson, who seemingly in the middle of negotiations for a bout with Sergey Kovalev, bolted, signed a deal with Al Heyman, moved over to Showtime. At this point, ending all negotiations for the previous bout with Kovalev. Well, he made his debut on Showtime Championship Boxing, fighting Fonfara, and it was interesting. Really a tale of two fights. The first 6-7 rounds, Stevenson was in control, knocked Fonfara down the first round with a left hand, knocked him down the fifth round with a body shot. But towards round 7, 8, you can see signs of fatigue on Stevenson, due to the fact, in my opinion, that even though Stevenson was in control, Fonfara, he was persistent, he was consistent, he was constantly in Stevenson's face, he made him work. I think that's what caused the fatigue. It really showed himself in round 9 when Fonfara knocked Stevenson down with a right hand, and Stevenson down. Had him in a bit of trouble, too, as far as I'm concerned. He was lucky to survive that round, but to Stevenson's credit, he fought back hard, winning by unanimous decision. I'll go to you, special guest Sean. Your thoughts on the fight? And while Stevenson, he was getting a lot of hype and a lot of press beforehand, due to his defense over his title win over Chad Dawson, his defense over Lemieux. But in this fight, I think that Stevenson was a bit exposed and shown to be a bit overrated. Your thoughts on the fight itself, and your thoughts on what you think of Stevenson. Is he a bit of an overrated fighter?
I think Stevenson's been exposed before. He's been KO'd in previous fights, so he shows that he's, vulnerable. But, with his power, he's always dangerous. And in this fight, I mean, he did dictate most of it. He did show that his endurance is maybe something that he needs to work on, and a weak point that somebody can take advantage of later on. Fonfara fought well. He pushed. He took a lot. He made it a tough fight for Stevenson, and I think in some senses for Stevenson it was a victory because he showed that he was able to fight through a tough fight and still come through with a good result, even against a tough guy that was not a pushover. So, he's the champ. He has another victory. It wasn't an easy one, but he did what he needed to do. He does seem to be a little predictable just with his jab, jab, left hand. So, more skilled fighters might be able to take advantage of that as well. So he's vulnerable, which makes him interesting. You can't go into a fight with him and think that he's going to easily win, which makes it much more interesting for the viewers.
To Sean's point, Ken, to me, when I looked at Stevenson, I saw him as a bit of a one-dimensional fighter. As Sean noted, I believe to me Stevenson is a bit. He's a one-handed fighter. He's a left jab, double right jab, single right jab, double right jab, left hand, or he'll throw the left hand out in a counter punch. He doesn't follow up the left hand with the right hook, and whenever he throws the right hook, he's susceptible to being caught by left hooks, and it showed itself in the Fonfara fight. And even when he throws the left hand, sometimes he throws it in a way in which he can be countered with the right hand. And for me, for a long arm guy, Stevenson, he's not that tall. He's only about 5'9", 5'10", average, a bit short for the division actually, but he doesn't use his length well for such a long arm guy. Your thoughts on the fight, Kent, and your thoughts on, as far as I'm concerned, the limitations of Adonis Stevenson?
I'm going to tell you right now that even though Adonis had his way with Fonfara in the first half of the fight, Fonfara was able to land shots against him throughout the first half of the fight. And that was a telling sign for me that it wasn't coming down the stretch that it'd be a little bit more difficult than most people. Everybody was going into, oh, this is going to be an easy fight for Adonis. He's going to showcase. He's going to show everything he's got. He's going to show all his skill. This is going to be easy work. Blah, 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 blah. There was a lot of talk like that, okay? Even from Adonis himself saying the fight was going to be an easy fight and he was going to knock him out. Well, didn't turn out that way because I'll tell you this, from the jump, he was poking his jab out there. He was landing counter hooks. He was able to, push the pace at times. Yes, Stevenson would land, single shots, but he is, yes, a one-handed fighter. He showed, in this fight, and he's probably shown in other fights, that if he doesn't knock you out, there doesn't seem to be another plan. That's what I think happened. I think the fact of the matter is when he doesn't knock somebody out and he doesn't, take care of business and take them out, his limitations show, like his stamina, his ability to adapt to a guy that's not going to fall over from his shots. I'll tell you this, it kind of reminded me of the fight against Don George, because Don George was dropped in that fight against Adonis Stevenson as well, but Don George at the same time too had success in the second half of that fight, and he was able to have his moments, but I think Fonfara did a lot better. I think it was the Fonfara, the fight with Fonfara was much more competitive, although it had similar different that moment where Stevenson just seemed to shut off, he seemed to slow down. The energy level, he can't it seems like to me Stevenson cannot maintain his energy level for 12 rounds. He runs into a wall at some point, and he's a fast starter. He's a front runner. That's the one thing I noticed.
Do you think it's a result of him just going all out for the knockout and just wasting punches?
I think he puts too much into trying to knock somebody out early in the fight. By the time the 8th or 9th round comes on, he loses a little bit of steam, and somebody like Fonfara, who's a game guy, who's a tough guy, who had a game plan going into the fight, who executed his game plan pretty much to, I give it a B- or a C, but his ideas, what he wanted to do, he was able to do, especially much better in the second half of the fight. The first half, he had moments where he was doing it, and it looked good. And even at that point, I'm saying, well, Stevenson doesn't look as impressive if he can't get his guy out of there. And I think for the most part he just was. I think Stevenson goes too hard for the knockout early, but by the time the end of the fight comes along, he's not the same guy with energy. His work rate drops. His opponent can take advantage of that. He's like I said, he's a front runner, and he goes too hard for the knockout. I think instead of just using his skill, because we've seen his skill at play at times, but not in this fight. He seems just hell bent on knocking Fonfara out. Yeah, he dropped Fonfara twice, but he couldn't finish him because he was just so hell. I think he just used a lot of energy, into just single shots. He doesn't when he gets into that mode of just using single shots and just focusing on a knockout and not boxing. That's when he doesn't look as good.
How can I put this? Sean and I was talking a little bit in the before the show began, Kid, and I want to know your assessment of this, of what I'm about to say. In spite of the power and the hype that it was going on before the bout with Stevenson about him being this devastating puncher, I don't think at 175 he is the puncher that he was at 168. I make an analogy, and in that regard, I make an analogy between Stevenson and one of my favorite fighters, Nigel Benn. Ben, when he was at 160 pounds, when he was at middleweight, count the Eubank bout out because Eubank had a chin of granite. Everybody knows that he could take a hell of a punch. But Ben would bowl guys over. Even when hurt, he would hit guys and they would go down and out. Same thing pretty much with Stevenson at 168. But when Ben moved up to super middleweight, it was a little bit more work for him, and he adjusted. Starting off with his defense, he doesn't give enough credit for his defense. He used a lot of upper body movement, head movement, and he also went to the body more when he was at 168 pounds. When I look at Stevenson, I see the same thing as a guy who was bowling guys over at 168 at super middleweight. But in spite of the Dawson bout, which everybody knows Dawson's chinny, and Bellew, he's chinny as well, I wonder the power that Stevenson truly has at 175. And judging off of this fight against Fonfara, I didn't see any adjustments against the guy. Even though he knocked down early, he stayed in there. Your thoughts on that, Kim? And you can follow up.
I'll be honest with you. I think a lot of Stevenson's hype with his power was manufactured off the Dawson and Bellew wins. Because I'm going to be honest with you, they don't take a very good punch well.
Well, I said last week, I don't trust guys, even if Fonfara's so toughness, I don't trust a guy with a long neck and skinny jaw. It's just got a kind of reputation with me, a generalization. It may be wrong, but it's my experience.
Right. But you got to admit, Fonfara, he's not chinny like you think. He took some shots, yeah. He got caught, but he got back up, and he kept fighting on. I think you can hurt him, but I think when you hurt him, Fonfara, you're going to have to finish him. Because if you don't finish him, he's going to come fight harder. And that's what he showed. When you knock him down and you hurt him, he fights harder. And it kind of reminds me of, like of that thing where, like, he kind of reminds me of Froch a little bit. Not the same level, not the same, he's clearly hasn't fought the same level of opposition, but that's the thing with Froch. If you hurt him, you better finish him. Because if you don't finish him, he's going to come back harder. And he's going to fight harder. And he's not going to let you breathe. And he's going to keep going. And he's not going to stop. Fonfara is the type of guy, very determined, very strong guy, very game guy, a lot more skilled than people gave him credit for. I was pretty much last week the only guy that really gave him any credit. I felt, during the show, and I felt he showed that. I felt he showed that he's a lot better fighter than a lot of people thought. I think he's probably top 10 in the world.
Your thoughts on my assessment of Stevenson? Am I off the mark here in questioning how big of a puncher he is at light heavyweight? Kent,
Say that again?
your thoughts on my assessment? Am I wrong to question the power of Adonis Stevenson at 175 as opposed to
Yeah, I say
168 pounds?
he's not the same puncher he was at 68. Because I remember at 68, him going, when he would just go out there and blitz guys. I mean, he blitzed tough guys. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I remember he blitzed a guy named Derek Edwards, a guy that knocked out, Badu Jack in the first round. I mean, and Derek Edwards, yeah, he isn't like a world-class fighter, but he's a very tough guy. Very tough guy, durable guy. And he just ripped through Derek Edwards, and he ripped through other fighters at 168. I mean, he damn near, laid out, he pretty much tore up, Don George. I mean, Don George is a pretty tough guy. And Don George, he just beat up, and the funny thing about that fight was that, yeah, Don got dropped in the fight, and Don was on the verge of being knocked out, but he took some hellacious punches in that fight. And I was surprised he even made it to the end of the fight. But yeah, I think Adonis, beat a lot of, at 168, he just walked through guys with his power. At 75, he does have power, but he doesn't have the type of power where he can just take a guy out early. It's more of it's not that same type of power. It's not devastating power. It's good power. I mean, it's good enough to hurt guys, but I've noticed it takes him a little while to finish guys at 175. At 168, he just would land one shot or two shots, and he'd be able to hurt them and finish them. Not so now. I mean, I guess the extra weight has taken a little bit of the snap off his punches.
The extra weight and the fact that he's in the ring with bigger guys. I want to go to you on Sean. Look, the Kovalev fight is not going to happen, at least right now. Stevenson made the move to Showtime, presumably, to get a fight with Bernard Hopkins, the alien, the executioner, whatever you want to call it. Coming off of this bout, presuming the bout with Hopkins does happen, it seems like it's going to be an easy fight to have to make. Your thoughts on a potential bout between Stevenson and Hopkins? Because right now, look, on the G Plus page, not on the pound for pound boxing report G Plus page, not this one where we do the show, but the official one where I put the news and facts and whatnot. I had a couple of commenters, a couple of folks comment that based off of this performance that Stevenson would handle Hopkins. I disagree. I don't see it. Can Stevenson beat him? But is he going to handle Hopkins? Absolutely not. I think Hopkins, he's old. Everybody knows he's old, but I think Hopkins can use psychological warfare. He could use all this experience and tricks in the book to really give Stevenson trouble, if not outright beat him. Your thoughts, Sean?
I agree. I think this comes down to Stevenson having legitimate power. He does. It's like a pitcher who throws 100 miles an hour. It's a great tool. But if the only thing you have is a 100-mile-an-hour fastball and you don't have a changeup and you can't hit the strike zone, you're going to limit yourself. You're not going to get the wins that you could get. This puts him against a guy like Hopkins, who is not a fastball pitcher, but he's like a Glavin. He's able to hit the corners, get the strikes, and get the wins. Against a guy like this, who is predominantly left-handed, he's going to take the left hand away. He's going to frustrate him. He's going to hit him with that straight right to the head and to the body all night, and he's going to hold and clinch, and he's just not going to let him get off, and he's just going to get frustrated and frustrated. He doesn't throw volume punches, so I mean, usually, or in the past, that's been what Hopkins has had problems with. That's why he's pretty much picking guys that aren't volume punchers at this point. And Stevenson hasn't shown that he's a volume puncher, and he's easy to predict. Hopkins could tell you now what the first 4 punches Stevenson is going to throw. So, you know, it's not like he's going to get hit by them because he already knows what they are. Unless Hopkins really gets old overnight, I don't see him losing this fight. Could Stevenson win? Of course. I mean, he has power, and he's a little younger. He's not young by any stretch of the imagination for boxing either. But yeah, I think Hopkins' brain is going to be able to beat Stevenson's left hand.
Your thoughts, Ken, on a proposed Stevenson-Hopkins bout?
I don't think Stevens gets that left hand going. I think Hopkins gets it in his head to the point when the fight starts, he's going to take the left hand away. Once you take Stevenson's left hand away, it's an easy fight. Use Hopkins' brand of psychological warfare during press conferences and his ability to take the left hand away. And when you take that left hand away from a guy like Stevenson, he's an ordinary fighter. He doesn't know how to use his I haven't seen him dominate a fight with his right hand. He doesn't throw nearly enough punches. I mean, he throws punches, but not nearly enough. You know, when he's sitting there just like when he was like
when he throws punches, like I said before, he wastes out of them.
Yeah, he wastes a lot of shots. And remember, I think he could have I thought he could throw more against Fonfara, but he was just satisfied with pop shots and getting everything behind one shot the entire fight. And that's why he fell into the rut he did. He tried to knock him out with one shot. Every time he threw, it was just like one shot with blunt force. And there's no rhyme or reason or any plan behind it. It's just going out there. And if he goes in there thinking he can do that to Hopkins, he has another thing coming. I'm telling you right now. Hopkins is going to take that left hand away, and he's going to make it a very easy fight. And I think he just handles Stevenson very easily. I don't think it's much of a fight at this point, based on what I saw this past Saturday. I think Hopkins wins easily, very easily. I don't think Stevenson puts a dent into him. I just don't see it. I just don't see how Stevenson can with his style, being able to give Hopkins any sort of trouble.
Yeah, I agree to a large extent, but first let's get the fight made, and then if the fight's made, we will do a lot more commentary, a lot more analyzing and discussion about that if and when it's made. Undercard bout, I'll go to you on this one, Sean. David Lemieux, a few years back, was highly regarded, thought of as this future world champion, future star in boxing. He was upset, knocked out, I believe, in round 2 by Marco Rubio in Montreal. He's on the comeback trail, had a bit of a showcase bout against Fernarndo Guerrero on the undercard of Stevenson and Fonfara. And the reason I go to you, even though you live in Taiwan right now, you are Canadian. Look, say what you want about Lemieux. Is he a little bit flawed? Yeah. Is there still some questions about his chin? Absolutely. But based on this bout, third round stoppage, third round knockout against Guerrero, he's made a lot of improvement in my eyes. A lot of technical things. He's a little bit tighter with the defense. And the thing that draws him and the thing that's going to keep him a name in the sport and in the middleweight landscape is that he has that it factor in and out of the ring. And he has the thing that captivates the crowd and gets eyeballs on him, puts butts in seats, and that's power. Look, Golovkin's a puncher, Quillen's a puncher. But I tell you one thing, David Lemieux, he can bang as well. He has that dynamic power. He really showed it against Guerrero.
Yeah, I mean, he's the Canada's new Matthew Hilton. You know, a great fighter, a little limited, but great power.
Great analogy. Great analogy.
Look, you know, I mean, can he be beaten? Of course. Rubio, who's another tough guy, an experienced fighter with power, he took the onslaught, and then he was able to reverse the tides on him. Now, a few years later, a few more fights through, he's coming out with a new perspective, and he seems like his endurance is much better. He didn't really look like he was getting tired in the last couple of fights I've seen him, and he's picking his spots a little better. He seems like a good fighter. It'll be interesting to see him against one of the top-level guys at that weight, like Kid Chocolate or somebody, or even him against a GGG.
I'll go to you on this one, Ken. Again, Sean and I was talking about this before the show, and look, Ken, we've talked about how a Curtis Stevens would fare against a Peter Quillen, for instance. And as I looked at Lemieux and the way he's fought now, particularly the way he looked against Guerrero, I think that he does a lot more than Curtis Stevenson. He's faster than Stevens. He gets there quicker. He has a better arsenal than Stevens. And dare I say, I think he's a harder puncher than Stevens because he can punch with not only the left hook, but the right hand as well. Quickly, your thoughts on this bout against Guerrero, how he looked, and how he would fare against a Peter Quillen. And the reason I'm mentioning Peter Quillen because there are some rumors that this could set up a potential Lemieux Peter Quillen fight, given the fact that they're both fighting on Showtime.
Lemieux looked outstanding on Saturday. I mean, let's just be real, okay? He fought Fernarndo Guerrero, okay? And I'm not dissing Fernarndo Guerrero, but going into the fight with Lemieux, he had been dropped 10 times. So the writing was on the wall what this fight was about.
That's true. That's true.
You know, the writing was on the wall, and it was to make Lemieux look spectacular. It wasn't about Guerrero.
But the thing is, he did though. And that's the point. They basically want him as an opponent for Peter Quillen. And I'm going to tell you right now, and I'm not trying to be, trying to talk up Lemieux, but I'll tell you this. I don't think many B-level middleweights should fight Lemieux. I just don't think, because number one, it's like one of those situations where it's not good for your career and it's not good for your health. Seriously. I mean, he is against B-level middleweights. He's going to be very, very, very difficult to beat, Lemieux. I think he's improved a lot since the Rubio fight. I'm going to throw away the Alcine fight because I think he fought very timid in that fight. You could see he didn't have the greatest confidence in the Alcine fight after the Rubio fight. He didn't have the same confidence. Going into the Rubio fight, he had a lot of confidence. In the Alcine fight, he didn't have that same confidence. So they went back to the drawing board and they rebuilt, and him and Mark Ramsey, they've worked on a lot of things. I truly believe they've worked on a lot of things, and I think stamina is the big key. See, the thing with people like, oh well, he just showed he was strong against Guerrero. Well, the point was to bum rush Guerrero and knock him out. That's what everybody who's ever beaten Fernarndo Guerrero bum rushed him and knocked him out. That's what Lemieux was doing, was the game plan. That was the blueprint on how to beat Guerrero. Bum rush him, knock him out. But I think he's shown more in prior fights before this than he showed. Like, he showed that he's improved things. Like, not in this fight necessarily, but like the fights with Torres, which was his fight before Guerrero, and his fight with Marcus Upshaw. I thought he showed a lot more. He showed a lot more ability not to go for the knockout if your guy is still there. His stamina's a lot better. I just think he's an improved fighter, and I think he really could seriously hurt Quillen. The way Quillen looked against Konechny, I don't give him much of a chance against Lemieux. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think Lemieux is the type of fighter, he's like a piranha. If he goes from like 0 to 60 in like 3 seconds, yes,
you can't stop him from doing that. Fight's over. He's not going to let you breathe. He's not, and the weight and the amount of, and his punching power is unreal. I mean, I think him and Triple G are the hardest punches at middleweight, hands down. I think Triple G may punch a little bit harder, but Lemieux's right there, and I think he would bulldoze Quillen. I think, listen, I'll tell you right now, I think Lemieux would bulldoze Quillen. I think he would have some trouble with Stevens, but I think he would eventually knock Stevens out. And I definitely think he bulldozes Danny Jacobs easily. I just don't see any. And people like, well, Lemieux doesn't take the greatest punch. Well, people need to realize in the fight with Rubio, he gassed out. He was gassed out. It wasn't like he was, you know, he was hurt by one shot. He was tired by the end of that fight, and he got floored. He got caught with some punches. I mean, Rubio's a puncher, but once you're gassed and you're getting hit with shots like that, of course you're going to go down. So I can't really say anything about his chin. But I will say this. If he hits you and you can't take his punch, it's over.
And for me, it's to the head and the body. See, that's the difference.
And that's one thing I will say. David Lemieux has become a much better body puncher. When he first came up and he was first coming up as a prospect, he was just a head puncher. Now he goes to the body. And I think that's where he's improved. I think the best thing that happened to him was losing that fight to Rubio. And the Alcine fight, because I think it made him go back to the drawing board and work on things. And I think that even if he doesn't become world champion, I'll tell you this, he's a much better fighter now. And he's an exciting fighter, and you know, at the end of the day, he's a tremendous fighter. He's an exciting fighter, and he's a fighter people want to see.
Yeah, absolutely, I agree with that. I think, like I said, he has that it factor. He has that spark. He's good behind the mic. Carries himself well, not just into the ring, out of the ring. Dude will go to a press conference in a suit. How many contemporary fights do you see do that today?
No. Listen, he plays the part well.
Right.
I love his little cocky edge to him, because why wouldn't you be cocky? I mean, you look good, you punch hard, you know, people love you, you know. That's the thing about Lemieux. The man's got 2 losses, and he's beloved in Quebec. He's an icon in the boxing world there. Why wouldn't you be a little cocky? But I do believe that also he has matured a lot, and he used to be more cocky than that. But he's matured. And I like some of the statements he made after the fight, saying that, you know, there's plenty of things to work on, and if there's nothing left to work on, you should retire. He's saying all the right things. And I want to see more of him. I think he would. I can't wait for a fight with him and Quillen, him and Jacobs. Hell, put him in there with anybody. It'll be an exciting fight, no matter what the result is.
Rising junior middleweight contender Jermell Charlo, twin brother of Jermell Charlo, fought a guy by the name of Charlie Ota, also on this the third bout of this triple header. This was the lead bout of that televised card. Charlo, we've talked about him before, and I'll go to you on this, Kent. I'll go first to you on this, Kent. We talked about Charlo before. Look, he won comfortably, but I was a little bit. I'm not gonna say not impressed, or I mean disappointed, but the fight was like, meh. He did what he had to do. Look, he got knocked down, but I think there was a case of bad foot positioning more than a case of a shaky chin. But Ota, he had to work a little bit harder than I thought he needed to. Am I wrong here about being not disappointed, I should say, but a little bit put off, a little bit meh in terms of Charlo and his performance over Charlie Ota?
I'll be honest. Charlo got caught with more hooks than I've seen him recently. You know, from both hands, left and right, just got caught with hooks. I mean, and I thought for the most part he fought good, and he controlled the fight, and he did what he had to do to win. But I felt during the fight, Ota, who's very tough, okay, not a pushover opponent, a limited guy, good work, will take your rounds, make you work for whoever fights him is going to work to win, if he doesn't beat you. And I felt Ota came in there and exposed some things. I felt he exposed the fact that he gets hit by hooks. A tall guy like that getting hit by hooks. Could you imagine that? A little short guy like Ota. Little guy who probably shouldn't even be fighting at 54. I think he should be at 47, Ota. But
yes,
he was able to hit the guy with hooks. I mean, it makes me wonder. Did we find a little chink in the armor of Jermell? Did we find the chink in the armor? Because I was talking to somebody about this the other day, and they were saying, well, when he gets older and he slows down a bit, if he's not able to get, if he still has issues getting away with avoiding those hooks, he's going to start getting knocked out. And I agreed with them, because if you don't have the ability to get out of the way of shots like that, when you slow down and get older, you're going to get caught flush. I mean, he wasn't getting caught, like earth-shattering caught, but he was getting clipped. And it makes me wonder, did we find a chink in that armor of Charlo?
I'll go to you on this, Sean. Charlo was outstanding when he beat Gabriel Rosado last year. He looked like a guy who was going to be a potential world champion. Your thoughts, your assessment of Charlo based off of this performance, which it wasn't terrible, but at the same time, it wasn't great either.
He reminds me of a young Donald Curry. I think he's got fast hands, throws good combinations. He's a good fighter, and I think he can win a title.
Curry had more power, more explosive than Charlo ever did. Than Charlo does at this point.
But they both also have vulnerabilities. I mean, which afterwards Curry was exposed after the Marlon Starling fight, or Hunnigan. And, I think Charlo's the same. He was exposed a little that he can be hit by a hooker. And in that division, there's quite a few guys with power that he may need to be careful of. But as far as skills, speed, ability, jab, he has the skills. I think he will become champion. But will he be the best fighter at that division? I don't think so. But it's nice to see him and his brother sort of freshen it up and add some more drama to it, that's for sure.
I'll go to you on this one, Sean, and we can move on. Of the fighters at 154, I mean, you got who's the IBF Molina? Who's the IBF champion now? Molina. You got Canelo.
Andrade.
Yeah, Andrade. I'm sorry, Andrade. You got Canelo. I think Floyd still has the belt at 154. He's probably not going to fight there anytime soon. Between an Andrade or a Canelo, who, if you was in the camp of Charlo, who would you shoot for?
Molina. I mean, he's an ugly fighter, but I think Charlo could easily beat him just by using his jab and using distance and speed and just stay away from his mugging style. I mean, Andrade is a good fighter, more experienced, and at this point, I think Andrade would beat him. I mean, down the road, not sure. Canelo at this point, I think definitely would beat him. I think Canelo's the best fighter at that division right now. I mean, he's not going to stay there long, so then I think Andrade will take over for the next little while. But, yeah, Molina is the fight. But apparently that's the fight that they're trying to avoid, fighting Charlo, and he's going to get a fight with Smith.
Oh, Ishe Smith.
Yeah, who hasn't done, is it Ishe, or who did Ishe beat? Bundridge. Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, he's going to have to fight Bundridge, and Bundridge hasn't done anything since he lost to Ishe Smith, so I don't see that fight being very entertaining.
I want to move on to the news segment, and it was a sad bit of news to report in the sport as on Sunday, former light heavyweight champion, if you're a hardcore fan, particularly a hardcore fan of a certain age, over 30 like myself, boxing icon and legend.
Way your age now.
Hey man, look, it is what it is. I ain't say specifically how old I was. Stop it now. As former light heavyweight champion Matthew Saad Muhammad passed away in a Philadelphia hospital, succumbing to issues with Lou Gehrig's disease. Passed away at age 59. As I was saying, if you're a really hardcore fan, you know full well about Saad Muhammad. even if you're a watcher of fights on ESPN or on ESPN Classic, for instance, they from time air his fights. His fights are all over YouTube. I want to go to you on this one, Ken. Saad Muhammad, the Ultimate Warrior. Before there was a Evander Holyfield, there was a Saad Muhammad, one of the best light heavyweights of the 1970s. And as far as I'm concerned, one of the top 10 most exciting fighters of all time. Some words on the career and the life of Matthew Saad Muhammad.
Well, I'm going to say right now, if you go on YouTube and you pull up a highlight video that was made by Jesse Reed Jr. of Matthew Saad Muhammad, he says one thing. He said Muhammad was the greatest fighter to pull a fight out of the dumpster. That's describes Matthew Saad Muhammad. He could be getting beat, pummeled, bloodied, just being out hustled and out gamed, and then all of a sudden he'll just explode, and he'll come back and he'll fight harder, and he'll come back and like he could be getting handled in one round, and then the next round he could come back and knock you out. He just had the amazing ability to dig his way out of holes. He had such great. He's the typical Philly fighter. Like he dug his there's been fight look at the first Marvin Johnson fight. He was clearly losing that fight, behind and going into the 12th round, and he comes out in the 12th and he knocks Marvin Johnson out. I mean, please watch that fight if you're a young fan or you're just a fan and you've never seen Matthew Saad Muhammad fight. Watch his fights. He just found a way in every single one of his fights to dig his way out of a hole when he was behind. He was getting, you can't, man. It seemed like in every fight he was cut, he was busted up, he was bloody, he was getting knocked down. He was great at, he found his way back in so many fights, and I'll tell you, I think that's what kind of led to his downfall. Because when he had the 2 fights with Kawi, he stopped in both of those fights. He was never the same. After those wars, and then he fought Kawi, he was never the same. Great fighter, though. Great action fighter. He was a great action hero of that era, that late 70s, early 80s. I mean, the fight with the first Marvin Johnson fight was at the Spectrum, and that fight's right on YouTube. And oh, what a great fight! If that's one fight you ever watch of Matthew Saad Muhammad, that typifies his career right there. He was behind against Marvin Johnson, and he came back in the 12th. It came out in the 12th round and knocked him out. That's all you need to know about Matthew Saad Muhammad.
Got joining us live right now. He just got on with us, Mr. Boxing Addict, live from England, live from the UK. First of all, thanks for joining us. And I want to get you into this discussion. We're talking about the life, the career, the legacy of one Matthew Saad Muhammad, who passed away Sunday at age 59. A few words from you on Matthew Saad Muhammad, and the fighter and the man that he was in his career in the sport, one of the most exciting fighters of all time.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, first of all, I want to say sorry about the late arrival.
No problem.
Yeah, but yeah, amazing guy, amazing fighter, just incredible, really. What he achieved in his career is always in really tough fights. He's obviously had a really, outside of boxing, he's had a really tough time. But sometimes they make the greatest fighters, don't they?
Absolutely. Some thoughts from you, Sean, on Sean Kent mentioned the Marvin Johnson fight, the first fight. The second fight in which Saad Muhammad won the belt, that was a hell of a fight too. The fight with Yaki Lopez, the fight with John Conte, and other fights. Your thoughts about the career of Matthew Saad Muhammad?
For people that don't know him, I mean, he's a gaddy type of fighter, a guy that always put on exciting fights, whether he won or lost. I mean, and always had the ability to pull one out late. Some of the earlier fights I watched were like, I think I first saw, him fight was against Marvin Johnson, and then I saw him against Braxton. And then now, of course, with YouTube, you have the opportunity to go watch all the other fights that you weren't able to watch when, during the 70s. And one thing you could say, he was an exciting fighter, and you always looked forward to seeing him out there.
I want to go back to you, Ken. I talked about the tumultuous life of Matthew Saad Muhammad. For those who do not know, abandoned by his mother, was basically found on a park bench, not knowing his name. We don't even know he was formerly Matthew Franklin. We do not know, really, I don't think, that his name was actually Matthew Franklin. That's what I think he was told.
I think his real name was Maxwell Loach. That was his real name.
Talk about the tumultuous early life of Saad Muhammad and how he used that as fuel to become a world champion.
Yeah, he was found on Franklin Boulevard on a bench, and he was raised by two sisters, in the church, and he always he never understood why he was abandoned. He never understood that. He didn't realize why no one wanted him. You know what I'm saying? And so there was a lot of animosity there, which is that fueled him. And then he had a crazy foray into when he got into boxing. He had a very short amateur career, but accomplished a lot. I think he was Golden Gloves, and had maybe about 30 or 35 amateur fights, and then he turned pro, and he had kind of a slow start. He had 8. He started his career 8-0, and then he there was kind of like a trade where one manager, traded him over to another manager, and this other manager was friends with a guy named Russell Peltz, who Russell Peltz is one of the most famous promoters in Philadelphia.
Yes.
Had the Spectrum series, fights at the Blue Horizon, and just a legendary promoter in Philadelphia. His early promoting is probably what's really made him, his early days of promoting. And the manager actually sent him over to Europe to fight. I forgot I believe his name was Mate Parlov. Sent him over to Italy to fight Mate Parlov.
Parlov, who eventually became a world champion himself.
Right, but this was early in their careers. And the manager he had that eventually got him was like to put his fighters in tough. And he beat Mate Parlov. And then he sent them, on the road to fight another future world champion at cruiserweight, Marvin Camel, and he beat Marvin Camel. And he was just that type of guy. He was a road warrior. He fought everybody, His first one of his I believe his second loss came to Eddie Mustafa Muhammad, and a fight that was a very dubious decision. A lot of people thought Matchiseb Muhammad won, but the judges thought otherwise. But that's not new in boxing. And then from that point on, he went on a run, and he ended up, having the legendary fight with Marvin Johnson, and then, he won the NABF title, and he defended that a few times. I think of some of his NABF title defenses against lesser opposition, he was knocked down.
Those were better than a lot of championship bouts that you see.
Yes. Like I can tell you right now, it's on YouTube. His fight with Richie Cates, he got dropped by Richie Cates, and he got up and he knocked him out. I don't know if this fight's on there. His fight with Billy Douglas, he got dropped by Billy Douglas. He got up and he came back and knocked him out. These were all regional title fights. These weren't even world title fights. His first fight with Yaki Lopez, which was a regional title fight, was a great fight. Another great fight. A fight where he was getting beaten up and he found a way and came back and won. So, like, that was his life. He always battled back. Like when everything was against him, he found a way back. And I think that's what his life was until the end. I think at the end of his life, in the last few years, he was homeless. You know, he wasn't doing well health-wise, you know, but he was always had a positive attitude, very good person, you know. He never, like the breaks he was dealt, he never once had any real animosity, you know. He just was a very positive person, and he was a great fighter. And please, anybody who's watching this, please watch his fights. Listen, watch as many fights as you can of him, because there's drama with him in every fight. I can't describe how many times he was in fights that he's supposed to win, and he finds his way to get himself knocked down or beaten up or cut or whatever, but he finds a way to win, and I think that's what he should be remembered for.
You know, this may be cliche and corny here, but there's a song by Donnie McClurkin, which goes by the name of "We Fall Down," and in a line it says, "We fall down, but we get up," and that perfectly describes the career and life of Saad Muhammad, both in and out of the ring. He was a guy who kept getting knocked down in life, but he kept getting up. The same thing applies to him in terms of his career. He went down, but he constantly got up. As I said, a warrior in the ring, a warrior out of the ring, the epitome of class and professionalism. As Ken said, he had some issues in life, but he handled it like a true champ. And for me, look, it was because of those qualities that made him so beloved and revered by boxing fans, particularly during the 1970s of that time, and particularly by boxing fans now. And it's not hyperbole, it's not exaggeration when Ken's talk about his fights on describing his fights. Just go to YouTube, like he said. The 2 fights with Yaki Lopez, the 2 fights with Marvin Johnson, even the fights with Ricky Case,
fights with Conte,
Vonzel Johnson, Mawale.
Even his losses to Kwawi, they're a great fight.
The Mustafa Muhammad bout, which Ken mentioned. Mustafa Muhammad, by the way, who later on won the WBA championship. Very good fighter, light heavyweight, before losing to Michael Spinks. But again,
I believe the Mustafa Muhammad fight, it just highlights, but it gives you an idea how the fight went. And if you watch it, you'll see that Muhammad's Matthew said Muhammad's a clear winner.
Yeah,
the decision was a bad decision, and that was the one that was like. And there's a really good article about Matthew Said Muhammad on Fight News, written by J. Russell Peltz. That's very, very good story. I believe I posted it a couple places on Facebook. I would definitely, check out that article and watch the fights. Absolutely watch every one of it. And try to watch as many fights as you can. Because no matter who he was fighting, he found him, like, he would always get himself in a hole. Somehow he would get himself, but he found his way back. And I just can't speak enough about his fights. They're great fights.
Yeah, and another fights too against Murray Sutherland. And I wrote a tribute to Matthew Saad Muhammad on the Pound for Pound Boxing Report blog page, and I featured his title winning bout, the second fight against Marvin Johnson again. So again, rest in power to Matthew Saad Muhammad. He will sorely, there's no doubt that he will sorely be missed. And the show tonight is dedicated to the life and the memory of one Matthew Saad Muhammad. Off of that kind of sad note, let's move on to the boxing preview as we close down the show. The big fight this weekend, of course, and we've been looking for it. I know I've been looking for it, so have you guys as well. The rematch between Carl Froch and George Groves for Froch's IBF and WBA super middleweight titles. I want to go to you on this one, Boxing Addict, if you're there. For those who don't know, Froch and Groves, they fought last November. Controversial decision, controversial stoppage. Froch ended up winning by ninth round stoppage, ninth round TKO. Groves from round 1 to control the bout, knocked Froch down. For the first 6-7 rounds, really had control of the bout, using his speed, using his skill to get the advantage of Froch. Froch looked a little bit off, but Groves, for the first half of that bout at least, was terrific. But eventually Froch got to Groves a little bit, hurt him a little bit in round 8, hurt him big time in round 9. Groves was fighting back somewhat, but the referee stopped the bite. All hell was raised. A rematch was demanded. After some back and forth, we finally get the rematch. It's going to be happening this Saturday, live on HBO here in the States. Wembley Stadium, expected 80,000 fans. I don't know how many viewers going to be watching it in the UK, but again, exciting fight. I know we can't wait over here. What is first of all, your thoughts on the bout, Boxing Addict, since you're over there in England right now, in the UK? And what are the thoughts? What is the buzz? What is the hype over there for this bout? I know it's big over here. It got to be tremendous over there.
It is. Everybody's absolutely buzzing about this fight. It's incredible. It's took over the whole of the media, the newspapers, Sky Sports, BBC. It's everywhere. People are so interested in it because it is a 50-50 fight. Groves did so well in that first fight. He shocked most people. I think everyone knew he had skills anyway. He was fast and he was young, but they didn't expect him to do that to Froch. I don't think anybody did. So this fight is going to be really, it's a 50-50 fight. Has Carl aged? Has he took too many shots over the years? He's always in big, exciting fights, and I've followed him for many years. I'm from Nottingham, so I'm a Froch fan. I'm hoping he wins, but yeah, I think there's a lot of nerves going into that fight for Froch's people. Has he still got it? I don't know. What do you guys think?
I was going to ask you a follow-up question. From what I understand, you're going to be attending the weigh-in, right?
Yeah, which is why I'm running around tonight, so apologies for that. But yeah, I'm on a train down to London for 4 days, so I'm at the weigh-in tomorrow and the fight Saturday night, yeah.
Oh, and absolutely. We got to have you back on next week for your thoughts on how the atmosphere of the weigh-in, and I don't know if you attended the fight or not, but your atmosphere of the fight itself. I want to go to you on this one, Sean. Boxing Addict talked about has age finally settled on Froch going into the first fight. Ken and I talked about it, and my concern was, I should say, is that I wondered if the years of back-to-back-to-back tough fights against high-quality opposition, will it take its toll against a fighter in George Groves, who I thought was a really an improving fighter, who I thought had the skill set to give Froch trouble. Going into this bout rematch, your thoughts on the questions that Boxing Addict raised about Froch? Has age crept in? Has he gotten old?
Well, Froch has done nothing except beat Canadians. So going into that fight, I was supporting Groves to beat him. One for Canada, even though Groves not from Canada. No, I like Froch. He's a tough fighter. He always puts exciting fights. You know what to expect, and I mean, you can't say he was lucky to get a late stoppage, because Froch has been nothing but consistent. He always ends big. He always hurts guys late, and he's had a lot of big victories at the end of fights. So, I mean, I thought Groves was done, and I mean, if they would have let that fight go, I mean, Groves wouldn't have lasted another round. So, I mean, people can him and haw about it, but I mean, it was pretty obvious that Groves was getting beat down and that he was wearing out, and it would have just been an amount of time before the fight was stopped, so people would have been happy with it. But nonetheless, I mean, does Groves deserve a rematch? Yeah, he's a great fighter. He looked like skill-wise, I mean, he was on top of him. He looks the better boxer at this point of his career. Is he tough enough to take the pressure? We will see. But as far as skills, I think if he can stick to the game plan and move a little more to get away from Froch at times and sort of pick his spots a little better, I think he can get the decision. But can he take the pressure? We will see.
I differ somewhat about whether Froch would have stopped him. The issue with me, Kent, is that what made the first bout so controversial is that we were robbed of the opportunity to see what would happen after Froch hurt Groves in round 9. Groves was fighting back, but he was obviously hurt. Referee stepped in, and we didn't see the opportunity. What went down? Your thoughts on this proposed on this rematch that's about to happen?
You know what? I think Groves needs to fight a little smarter. I personally think. I think he went into the first fight, you know, knowing that he had to do something to make, you know, Froch respect him, and I think that knocking him down in the first round was you know, a good way to do it. You know, when you knock somebody down like that in the first round, I mean that's like gut check time. You know, like for a guy like Froch. I mean, but I think he could have went about it a little bit smarter. Personally, I think he needs to go. I think personally, Froch needs to go in. I mean, Groves needs to go in there and just box smart. I think he should go to the body more. I think that's one thing he should do, because remember, Froch is the type of guy that likes to come forward, that likes to push the pace, that likes to make it rough and to just put pressure on you and make you wilt. I think Groves needs to go to the body. He needs to get to the body. He needs to beat up on the body. He needs to make Froch feel his age. That's the important thing. You got to make a guy that's as old as Froch, you know, 37. You got to make him feel his age. You know, that's something that Mike Alvarado should have done against Juan Manuel Marquez, but he didn't. And I think he needs to go to the body. I think he needs to box a little bit smarter, and I don't think he should go in there hell bent on getting a knockout. I think he needs to fight smart. He needs to fight, you know, a very smart fight. I think to be honest with you, I think in the first fight he went in there trying to show his toughness. I mean, like, hurt him, try to go in there and make the guy respect you, but he kind of played into Froch's hands. Even though he was winning the fight, he played into Froch's hands. Let's just be realistic, because that's what Froch likes. He likes a tear-up. I think that if Groves is smart, he doesn't get involved in a tear-up this time. He boxes a smart fight. He stays on the outside. He goes to the body. He just uses his skill, and he wins a decision. But then again, it wouldn't surprise me if Froch knocked them out again, because we know we know what Froch is made of, and we know he's not against making it a street fight, and we know that if he can get into like under Groves' skin, and I think that's the reason why it turned into a tear-up in the first fight. I think Groves let Froch get under his skin.
Let me ask this question to any of you guys can respond. I've been watching this week, past couple of weeks, kind of episodes, little series and documentaries on the fight, particularly from Sky Sports and other UK outlets. They have their version of Face Off, HBO's Face Off there. I saw that with Froch Groves. It seems to me that Froch has been getting under the skin a bit of George Groves. And any of you guys can respond to you. Do you think the event, the hype of the fight, is starting to get to George Groves here?
Yeah, I can come in there. I think it definitely is. First time round, Groves totally, you know, outfoxed Cole. He was really angry with him because, you know, he was demeaning all of his achievements, etc. And they knew each other from before, from sparring. Groves had been up into Nottingham a couple of times. And Yeah, he was pretty, you know, angry really, and I think he went into that fight angry, and he wanted to knock him out, which you can't do, you know. I think if Cole boxes, you know, stays safe for a couple of rounds, because Groves will go for him. There's no doubt Groves will go for him in the first couple of rounds, and he needs to stay tight. He needs to box and come on late, because that's what he'll finish him late, I think. But you know, this time round, Cole has really outfoxed him. You know, he's turned it round. He's seen this sports psychologist, up in Sheffield, which is the sort of national sports centre in England, and it's working for him. He's obviously told him to stay calm, you know, reply when he needs to, and not let him get under his skin, and it's worked this time, I think. In all the interviews, all the media, pressers, etc., Cole's just staying calm. And I think that's only a good thing, you know?
Yeah, I agree. I think the thing with Froch is, like, he's such an experienced guy. Listen, I'm going to be completely honest with you. Groves doesn't have damn near the experience Froch has. Froch has been in the big fights before. He's been there and he's done that. You can't tell him anything about big fights or being ready for a big fight or preparing for a big fight. I think his last 10 fights have been nothing but big fights. So I think that's where Froch has an edge. I think the problem with Groves is he takes things too personally. Like, he doesn't see what Froch is doing. Froch is using gamemanship against Groves. And I think he did that well in the first fight. I think Froch used that very, very well. And I think that's part of being a young guy, Groves being a young guy, not being as experienced, you know, being cocky and thinking that, you know, you got the world at your feet. And remember, you got to understand that if you go in there and you let somebody's gamemanship get into your head, that's a surefire way to get yourself beat. Because then you get out of your game plan. You get away from what you wanted to do. And I think that's what happened to Groves in the first fight. I think Groves, in the first round, he went in there and he hurt Froch, and he thought, I can do it again. This guy can't beat me in a tear-up. I'm younger. I'm faster. I'm stronger. You know, thinking all that stuff, and I think that's what got him in trouble in the first fight. If he can go in there and stay relaxed in the second fight, I think he can beat Froch, but I don't know. I don't know with Groves. I don't know his mindset right now. So
he could certainly outbox Cole.
Oh yeah, he does have the skill to outbox Cole.
Yeah, if he can last 12 rounds, that's the thing that nobody knows, and I think that's the intriguing thing about.
Right, and I think that in a brawl, you're not going to beat Cole Froch in a brawl.
He's too tough.
Too tough. He's been there before, and that's the type of fights he loves. He loves a tough fight. He's never been afraid of a tough fight. Listen, when Groves hurt him in the first fight, he got up and he wanted to fight. That's what Froch is. You know, he was getting outdone in the early part of that fight, but as the fight went on, and he was getting more and more confident in his ability, and he saw Groves getting into wanting to engage into a tear-up with him, he felt right at home. It was like it was his ring, you know. And I think that's the thing. That's the key to the whole fight. If Groves thinks he can go in there and win a tear-up with Froch, he has another thing coming. I could be wrong, but I just don't think that's the wise thing to do against Froch, is to get into a tear-up. I think he needs to box and box smart, but I don't know if he can do it.
Yeah, like I said, it seems like he's let the moment got to him, or he could be smarter than this is kind of wrong to say. He could be smarter than I think, and using all this to lay a trap towards Froch, and he may indeed use his speed, his greater hand and foot speed, to really box Cole Froch. I'll go around table here, since we come short on time here. Round table. I was going to start with Sean, but he's dropped out for a moment, so I'll go to you on this one, Boxing Addict. I know it's wrong to predict, but I'm going to do it anyway. Froch grows 2. Who do you have winning? I know it's hard. I know it's hard.
Really. I feel Cole will win it. I really do. I can't see him losing in front of 80,000 people. You know, he's a legend here, so I can't see him losing. But, you know, who knows? You know, you step in the ring and you haven't got it anymore, and that's the worry. That's the worry for everyone at the moment who supports Froch, you know. If he's still got it, I think he'll stop him late, 8th or 9th round again, yeah.
Your thoughts, Sean, now that you're back? And I think Sean has hadn't gotten it back. I was going to say, your thoughts, Sean. Froch grows 2. I know it's hard to make predictions. It's not necessarily right predictions, but who do you have winning?
Well, I mean, I thought Grove should win the first time based on skill, and I think this time it's the same. But I mean, if he comes in looking for a KO and he's going to get into exchanges, then I think it could be the same result. Froch could stop him late. But that's what makes it an exciting fight. Depending on the style of the fight, probably determines the outcome.
Your thought, Kent?
I want to say that Groves wins a decision by boxing smart, but you know what? I can't go against Froch. He's been here before. He knows what it takes to win. And I'm going to say Froch by late stoppage.
Everything in me says that Groves is going to win. He's going to be winning until he gets caught again. And Froch will make sure and finish the job and leave no controversy. But I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that Groves wins by decision. Even though he hurt Froch the first time, Froch is too tough. He's not going to knock him out. But just like the questions I had about Froch, the series of tough fights catching up to Froch during the first fight, I think that's still an issue. The second fight, the jab of Groves really did the job during the first fight. I don't see how Froch can adjust unless he just outright bum rushes him. If Groves sets the jab, establishes the jab, and is smart, he will win a decision. I'm not full confident in that, but that's my decision. That's my analysis of it. Let's move on to some fights that's happening in Macau on the same day. Big card there, headlined by Nonito Donaire, who's moving up to featherweight to fight Simpiwe Vetyeka. For those who don't know about Vetyeka, he is the guy who ended the long reign of Chris John, knocking him out late last year in 5 rounds, I believe it was, to win the belt. The bout took place in Australia, I believe. Under the radar bout. I don't know if it's going to be on HBO. I think it is.
Will be on HBO.
Okay, good. I'll go to you on this one, Ken, since we talked about this when it was announced. Quick assessment of it and your thought, your prediction. Excuse, I may be wrong here. Donaire is the favorite. He should win. But I think that Vetyeka, who's on a roll, who's sturdy, who's really solid, who punches hard than people give him credit for, I think he's going to give Nonito Donaire a really good fight here. I really do.
I think he gives him a really good fight. I think he gives him a very, very spirited effort. I think he's going to have moments where he's going to outbox Donaire. Because I think Donaire is just, for some reason, went away from his... I mean, at one time, you know...
Donaire's not a boxer anymore. He's a pop shotter.
That's what I'm saying. He went away from being a boxer to more of a pop shotter, trying to get one shot and one punch knockout. And I think with that Vetyeka's experience, I think that plays into his hands. I think he's going to have moments, you know, where Vetyeka outboxes him. And I do know that Donaire has his dad back with him, but I also think, in all honesty, I think Donaire also has the Robert Garcia, you know, mindset ingrained in him now. So I don't know how much of his dad will play, you know, into how he fights. I think it's going to be a close fight. I think if anything, Donaire will get the benefit of the doubt at the end of the day, I think. But I think it's going to be a close fight. I think it's going to be a competitive fight. And I wouldn't put it past, you know, Vetyeka to steal one. But I think in a close fight, I think it'll go to Donaire. But I think Vetyeka will, you know, do enough and show enough in this fight that he'll probably get another title shot down the line. Maybe against Nicholas Waters. Or the Nicholas Waters Miskirtchian winner. But I'll say this right now before we go ahead. I think there's only one clear winner. Or one fight where I think there's going to be a clear, like, it's obvious who's going to win. And I think that's the Gradovich fight. That's the only fight. That's the only fight where I think there's going to be a clear winner. Obvious winner, rather.
Yeah. We'll go to you on this one quickly, Sean. Are we wrong here into thinking that Vetyeka is going to give Donaire a battle, or is it just a case of the speed and the athleticism being too much for the slower, a little bit more methodical Simpiwe Vetyeka?
Well, I mean, he looked like he had good boxing skills against John, and you know, he showed power as well. He seems a little stiff, doesn't seem so fast, and who has he beat? Nothing against John, but I mean, people have been saying that John's been avoiding real fighters for the last 5 years. So
I disagree with that, and I think the win over Don was a really good win as well.
Well, you know, that's what brings boxing interesting, to see whose opinion on what. I mean, Donaire at the same time has questions, coming off of a Rigo loss where he looked bad, coming back to fight Darchinyan, who gave him a tough fight. Even though I think people are too quick to dismiss Darchinyan, we'll see against the Jamaican guy on this undercard to see how good he really is, because we know Darchinyan will come to fight. I mean, I expect that. Well, I'm hoping that Donaire goes back to a little bit more of his roots now that his father's there. Boxes a little more, doesn't rely on one punch to like win the fight, because Vetyeka, the one thing he showed is that he has a tough chin. So if he's just going in there to knock him out, it could be a long night.
On this same Macau card, you mentioned Darchinyan. He's going to be fighting interim WBA champion Nicholas Walters. And I'll go to you on this one, Sean. Follow up question. Look, Darchinyan. Look, for a large portion of that bout, he was beating Donaire. Just the power of Donaire just really took over. But the issue I have with Donaire, I don't think he's fighting in the correct weight. I think he's really, really small. He's small for junior featherweight. I think he's really small for 126. Against Walters, I think is a little bit underrated. I think he's looked good. Walter has in his last couple of bouts. And for me, look, we all know Darchinyan is a tough nut. He will fight anybody. He is scared of no one. But I wonder if the size factor here of him fighting at 126 against a good-sized Nicholas Walters will be just a little bit too much. Or do you think the experience of a Donaire may possibly be a factor here?
Well, I mean, Darchinyan, he's experienced, but I mean, he's been pretty consistently the same fighter throughout his career. Aggressive, come forward, throw hooks. Against taller fighters, as we mentioned earlier, hooks can land. So we will see how Walters takes a hook and what kind of chin he has. I mean, Walters is he has good power as well. He's longer. If he can keep the fight on the outside and just catch him and fight at his pace, I mean, everybody predicts that he should get the stoppage. But Darchinyan is going to come. He's going to fight. So it's a good test. I mean, we know what we get from Darchinyan. We'll see what Walters is made of.
And it seems that Boxing Addict has dropped out, He's back and he's busy getting prepared for the Froch Grows 2, which he's going to attend. He's going to attend the weigh-in and all that. So I'll go to you on this one, Ken. Walters is a guy really unknown, not that people know of, a lot of. You can find a few of his fights on YouTube. Your thoughts on his fight against Darchinyan? Am I wrong here just thinking that the size will be too much of a factor for Darchinyan here?
You know what? I thought about that at first, but then I really realized that Darchinyan. Listen, Nicholas Walters is taking this fight on 4 weeks' notice. Okay, he had an original opponent, Alejandro Perez. Well, Alejandro Perez lost his tune-up fight for this bout, so essentially he couldn't fight. So they brought in Darchinyan on shorter notice, and I think the shorter notice may play a role in this fight.
Are we sure that Darchinyan is in proper shape?
I don't think Darchinyan would take a fight if he wasn't in proper shape. I've never known him.
Good point.
To be an out-of-shape guy and to not take a fight seriously and not take an opportunity to hand it to him. And I think that may play a little bit of a role in this fight. I'm not saying Vic wins, but I think Vic will make it a very competitive fight. I think he's going to have moments where he lands. And the question is, can Nicholas Walters, take a real major league punch? Because we don't know that yet. And we're going to learn that on Saturday. Can Nicholas Walters take a real punch? We know Nonito Donaire can, even though he was behind against Darchinyan, but he took a lot of those big shots. But Walters is really an unknown. He's not, he's not on the caliber. We don't know enough about Walters yet to know if he can hang with a guy like Darchinyan. So I'm going to say that Walters wins a very, very close fight, competitive fight. But I don't count Darchinyan out of this fight. Because with Darchinyan, all it takes is one punch with him, and he can end the night. And I think that's gonna be. I think at some point that's gonna be a factor. But I just can't count on Darchinyan. At this point in his career, being able to maintain his aggressiveness for 12 rounds. But like I said, all it takes is one punch. So I think it's going to be a good fight, but I think Walters wins the decision. I think it's going to be a competitive fight, though.
Third fight on this Macau card, triple header, features Evgeny Gradovich, IBF featherweight champion. As far as I'm concerned, one of the most improved fighters in the world over the past 12 to 18 months. He may be the top featherweight in the world right now. He's fighting a guy by the name of Alexander Miskirtchian. From what I've seen of Miskirtchian, wasn't that impressed. I'll go out on a limb here. I say that Gradovich handles Miskirtchian and handles him quite easily. Like I said, he's one of the most improved fighters in the world. He's not just the brawler that people make him out to be. He has real skill. That coupled with the activity level, underrated power, toughness, I think he's really becoming a complete fighter. And again, he may be the best featherweight in the world right now. People don't know about him, but as he keeps fighting, people will learn more about him. I'll go to you on this one, Sean. Again, to me, I think this is a clear victory for Gradovich here.
I think it's really a good card to put Donaire, Walters, and Gradovich on the same card.
That's why they calling it featherweight fury.
Yep.
Pushing for like future matchups. I mean, it's exciting, and I look forward to seeing how things work out. I mean, he's a good fighter, and the Russian Mexican, he's tough. He's looked good in his last few fights. I mean, I think, like you're saying, this fight is just to keep him busy and to build his name, so that if he wins, they can build a Donaire fight with him. Obviously that's where they're sort of looking. So it should be good. I expect him to have, obviously, like you were saying, Kent, the easier night. out of the three of those guys.
And let me, before I go to you and Ken, let me be boxing Nostradamus here. Let me make the bold prediction that if Gradovich does fight a Donaire, don't be surprised if Gradovich beats him. Proceed, Ken.
No, I wouldn't be surprised because, listen, you can't prepare yourself. I don't care what fighter you are. I don't care what you can't prepare to fight a Gradovich. I mean, the man just comes at you full throttle and throws over 100 punches around. How can you maintain? How could you even prepare for that? I mean,
to me, Gradovich is a. Everybody talk about Leo Santa Cruz and the way he throws punches. Gradovich is much better. I think he's a much better version of a Jeff Fennick. I'm going to go that far with him.
Yeah, I think he's a much better pressure fighter. He's a real. Yeah, I think Jeff Fennick. I mean, that would be a fair comparison because he applies smart pressure. He doesn't go in there trying to, walk. He doesn't go in there trying to just wing shots. He goes in there and he puts on educated pressure. He starts slow, but as the fight builds, his pressure builds. Billy Dibb knows that all too well. Billy Dibb, I mean, he made no improvements in that second fight, their rematch, and he just could not figure. He just doesn't understand, how to fight. No one's gonna understand how to fight a Gradovich because he's a machine. He's well conditioned. He puts on smart pressure. His offense is his defense, and I just don't see Miskirtchian having any shot in this fight unless he has a way of hurting Gradovich. And I'm going to tell you right now, nine knockouts and 25 wins is not going to do it. I'm sorry, it's not going to do it. And I think Mexican-Russian just walks him down, beats him up, and stops him. I just don't see it any other way. I think that when a guy like Gradovich puts on just such warfare, as soon as the bell rings, not a lot of guys are going to be able to deal with it. I think he's so beyond some of the guys he's fighting recently, but I understand why they're doing it. They're building his name. But I can't wait for him to fight a real world-class featherweight. I want to see how they deal with him. And right now, I have a very hard time seeing anybody that's going to be able to deal with him.
Yeah, absolutely. I wholeheartedly agree. And I think on that note, we're going to close the show down and end it. I'll go to you on this one first, Sean. For those who want to reach out to you and talk boxing and whatnot, where can they reach out? Where can they find you? Give them info about you.
My page, Black Dog Boxing, on YouTube. And, yeah, you see me around. If there's a video, I'll be there.
And let the folks know where they can find you, Kent.
You can find me at facebook.com/kent.ayers.1. You can reach me there.
And y'all know what it is. If you want to find more about the Pound for Pound Boxing Report, there are 2 pages you can go, 2 sites you can go. You can go to the blog page, p4pboxingreport.wordpress.com. You can go to the podcast page, p4pboxingreport.podomatic.com. On each of those pages, not only past episodes of Pound for Pound Boxing Report. Blog page, you can find articles written by yours truly, and you can find on both of those pages, you can find links to where to find us all over the internet. That's Facebook, Google+, YouTube, Tumblr, Twitter, Pinterest, RSS feed, link to where you can donate your account and whatnot. Just basically anything Pound for Pound Boxing Report online, just go to the blog page and the podcast page. On the next episode of the Pound for Pound Boxing Report, we will do, give me 1 second here. We're going to do a recap of Froch rematch and a recap of the Macau card, as well as do a boxing preview of Sergio Martinez making his return to the ring after a year layoff, as he fights Miguel Cotto in New York City. We're going to talk about those fights and do a preview of Martinez and Cotto. I want to thank Sean for joining us again all the way live from Taiwan. I want to thank my co-host Ken for joining us again this week. For our special guest Sean and for my co-host Ken, I am your host Michael. This has been another episode of the Pound for Pound.
Boxing Addict from coming on.
I forgot about him. Thank you, Mr. Boxing Addict, for joining us again live from the UK. He will be at the Froch Girls weigh-in. He will be attending the fight Saturday as well in London. So we will have him. We're going to try to have him back on next week to talk about that. So Froch Girls specifically in the atmosphere regarding that fight, which is huge, especially over there, and it's pretty big over here in the States as well. For my guest Sean, my co-host Ken, I'm Michael, the host of the Pound for Pound Box Report. This has been another episode. You guys have a good night.